Welcome to our show, My Gospel Journey, focusing on the influence of growing up in a pastor's household. Today we have the privilege of exploring the profound influence of growing up in a pastor's household. Today, hear the stories and reflections on faith, family, and identity of our special guest, Brother Themba Blowayo. Welcome, Brother Themba.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Can you please share a brief background about yourself?
Okay, I'm Themba Baloyi, born and bred in Johannesburg, mostly Soweto, a small township called Proteatlen. I won't reveal my age, but I'm pretty young. I'm still young. I love Jesus. As you said, my father is a pastor of a church in Proteatlen called Temple of Grace. And yeah, that's pretty much me. I'm married, I have a kid and all that stuff.
Is growing up in a pastor's household different from any other typical household of believers or non-believers?
Every time I get that question, it's pretty funny because I don't know what it is to grow outside of a pastor's home, but I guess it is different. By observing my friends, all the people I'm living with, it is a bit different in a sense of we are more a Christian family, so we are more Bible-based. Even our daily lives, the things that we do, it must align to what we believe in. The kind of career that we do must align to what we believe in. The way we speak to people, the way we treat people. Mostly it can be that you always have eyes on you as a family of the pastor. Everyone is looking to you to see what does the family do and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there is that kind of a difference, but when you are inside the home, pretty much my parents were pastors at the church and parents at home. So there was always that distinction. To a point, sometimes it would even be difficult for me to see them as pastors because I spend most of my time with them. So I see them as parents. So yeah, there is that difference, I'd say.
Can you share a specific moment or experience that you cite significantly impacted your understanding of faith and ministry while growing up?
I would love to say there was a significant moment where I saw an angel or something that just helped me to start understanding this ministry and faith journey. But to be honest with you, I cannot think of one, but what I can say is it's been a journey. Let me start here to say, as a pastor's child, one of the most difficult things is to get salvation, is to be saved as a pastor's child. You have to grow up and get to a point where you understand that your parents being a pastor doesn't automatically make you a child of God. You have to accept Christ on your own and understand the faith on your own. So that's one of the most difficult things. So now, as I grew up, of course, my parents were pastors from while I was at the age of 2. They started pastoring a church. So I grew up, my parents being a pastor. I grew up going to church. I never skipped church at all. If you ask back at home, they'll tell you, I think the last 3 years I've only skipped church like one Sunday, and that's because I went on a vacation or something. But yeah, that's the life it is. But what I'm trying to say is you get used to the church, you get used to the ministry. And most pastors' kids can mistake that to be the salvation, to being saved. And it's totally not true. I mean, I started being active at the church from the age of 9. I started playing the keyboard at the age of 9. I have over 30 years playing the keyboard at the church. But I would say the moment where I started to realize and start understanding the faith, funny enough, I'm over the age of 30 now, but I would say it's the moment probably before I got married. Simply because I started getting exposed. So my parents are normally protective of their children. So things that happen at the church and everything, all the church politics and all that stuff, they don't come to us and share about it. They always try to cover us in all ways. But when I reached that age, especially my dad, he started being more open to me, showing me how things are ran in the ministry, what are the challenges that are happening in the ministry. So at that moment, I think that's when I actually started to actually give my life to Jesus for real. Not just being a pastor's kid, not just doing what needs to be done. So yeah, from that moment, as I said, it's been a journey. I think when I got to that stage when I was going to get married, that's when I started to understand more. That's when I started to pray more. That's when I actually started to give my life to Jesus. And it was not there's an angel that came down, okay, now I understand. No, it's something even now, 5-6 years later, I'm still learning. So yeah.
So whilst growing up, how did you navigate the expectations that were placed on you by your family and congregation, whilst also developing your own personal beliefs and your relationship with God?
Okay, the easy one would be the expectations from the church. I never, with all kindness and respect, I never really bothered much of what the church expects of me. I didn't really kindly care enough as to what the church expects from me, because I mean, the church, it's different people coming from different backgrounds. Some people got saved within the church. Some people came with the salvation already. They already had a mindset or a culture of doing things within the church. So if I would have bothered myself more on how the church is expecting of me, I would be a confused person, because this one would say, as a pastor's child, you need to do things like this, and then the other one would say that. From my parents' side, a different story. Of course, there were expectations. I mean, I remember when growing up, one of the things I was really scared of is to disappoint my parents, to embarrass my parents, in a sense of living a wild life, having a child out of wedlock. That was one of my biggest fear. I didn't want it, because I understood what it can do to the church. I understood what it could do to my father's ministry. For example, if you read the book of Samuel, when we read about the story of Hannah, when Samuel was born, and then he went to go stay with the priest, the children of the priest used to misbehave. I think that's 1 Samuel from chapter 2 or chapter 3. Those kids used to misbehave. They would take the offerings and do whatever they want to do with it, for example. And then God punished the priest. I think his name is Eli. God punished Eli for the sins of his child. So there is a big impact as a pastor's child if you misbehave. So for my parents, there's always been that expectations that I should do things right. Luckily enough, they would give me enough room to say, you are a child, you are not a pastor, you will make mistakes in life, but the fundamentals are 1, 2, 3. And I'm telling you, if I don't go according to that, I always say, I'm the firstborn at home, and out of the 3 kids at home, I'm the one who got smacked the most. I got a beating of my life, but that helped so that even the ones who are coming before me, they started to see the way. So yeah, the expectations was to just live by God's word and do what pleases the Lord. That was the expectation. And that, to your question, it also helped me. I mean, listening to my parents, it will help me in my faith. They would tell me, you have to pray, you have to give tithe, you have to be kind, you have to help people, you have to devote yourself inside the church. So those kind of things, it really helped me to grow in my journey. Yeah.
So for my last question, in what ways do you believe growing up in a pastor's household has prepared you for your own spiritual journey and life?
Okay, I'll end with the spiritual journey one. In life, I've had my parents are very prayerful. My mom is a very prayerful woman, so is my dad. So it helped me in life because their prayers are what I am today. I always say, whatever that I have, whatever I achieve, whatever I will achieve, is because of the prayers of my parents. They have done so much in the kingdom. They have given so much. They've stayed up so late helping people, helping the community. They've given cars, they've given houses, they've given their life to people. And they still live a normal life. They are not mega pastors who would say they are rich and all that. But one thing I always picked up is that through that devotion that they had for the church, through that caring that they have for the church, I think those blessings have come down to us as their children. So in everything that we do, I would like to say I have struggled to do 1, 2, 3. I've struggled in my career. I've struggled. Yes, there's been challenges in my career. There's been challenges in life like anyone else. But it was not that deep simply because of the past, the kind of parents that I have. You know, some of the things when I desire them, they would happen. And I'd ask myself, why is this thing happening to me? Until I got to understand that you have parents who've been praying for you. I always say, you know, going back to that Samuel, that scripture on Samuel, when you look at the life of Samuel, from his childhood, he was given to the ministry. From the age, probably nowadays, probably the age of 3 or 4, after he was done being nursed by his mother gave him to the ministry, to stay in the ministry and serve in the ministry. That child is a reflection of my life. Ever since I've been a kid, my dad more especially, I remember when I started learning the keyboard at the age of 9. I think I was in grade 4 or something. It was, the way I learned it was funny. You know, back at home, instruments go stays in the pastor's house and all that kind of stuff, and then Sunday we'll take them and then all that. So while they are gone, I would steal the keyboard and try to figure this thing out until I started to understand what it's about. But from that point, at the age of 9, my dad always made sure that my life is based on the ministry. Whatever I do, I must always be thinking that I'm not just a normal child, but I'm what my parents has offered to the Lord as their first fruits. So that's why in everywhere I go, when I move into a certain new area, I need to know where is a church, where is a Bible teaching church that I can fellowship in. Because I know if I move out of that, my life will be a mess. So that's how it has shaped my life. On a spiritual journey, obviously it has shaped my life because we didn't have family challenges. You know, some other families, I mean, if your parents, you're coming from a background where your parents are sangomas, or you are coming from a background where, you know, there's some sort of spiritual warfare, it can be challenging spiritually to break out of those kind of things. So luckily enough, as a pastor's kid, I didn't have to fight those kind of battles. I didn't have to fight those kind of spiritual battles. So I was, in a sense, kind of protected. But then, so that shaped my life. Growing up, seeing my dad preaching, having Bibles around, him encouraging me that it's all about reading the word and let that word live inside of you. So that's how I can say it has shaped my spiritual life. I don't think there's, I think that's pretty much it.
I wanna ask, I wanna ask, like, what experience did you have, or like the experience that you have received from your father's ministry? How would you apply that to your daily life today?
So, if you're asking for my father's ministry, what experience do I have? My dad is he's full of faith. Like, he's a person who is so faithful to God. Like, he trusts God with all his life. My dad has achieved things whereby people who have more money than him, more power than him, couldn't even achieve. But simply because of the type of faith he has, the things that he owns, honestly, some of the things, even when I look at him, I'm like, this man is not even qualified to have the kind of things that he has. But because of the type of faith that he has, I always joke with my wife and say, you know, if my dad would earn the type of amount that I earn at work, my dad would even live a better life than the president, because of the type of faith that he actually has. So from him, I've learned a lot on faith. To trust in God even when you don't qualify for anything. I remember when I first applied that principle, actually, it was when I went to tertiary. It's a small testimony, but it changed my life. When I went to tertiary, I didn't qualify for the course that I wanted to do. I was short of the APS score. I was short of, I think it was 1 point or 2 points APS score. And what I did is, maybe to give you the background, is when I finished tertiary, I went through college. So in college, you didn't need APS and all that kind of stuff. I went to college, but as I was studying in college, I was like, I love the course that I'm doing, but I don't think the type of education I'm getting from this college will help me to succeed. I don't feel like I'm learning something that will make me valuable to a company. And then I realized that, you know what, I want to go back to university. On my final year in college, I decided, I was like, you know what, let me see this God that my dad is always trusting so much in. Let me have some faith. I had faith. I applied in the University of Johannesburg. Even when I was applying, my points were not allowing. I knew that from the start. I applied, and then they put me on provisionally selected. So basically that means they are waiting for results either from the college, or if you are writing matric at the time, they are waiting for your final results. And I was like, wow, that's a step in the right direction. And then come end of the year, they declined my application. It was so painful because I really wanted to do this course. I knew this was the course for me. And I knew if I can enter in University of Johannesburg, my career would be gone just like that. I prayed, I cried. I remember that day when I got the rejection, I cried so bad. My mom tried to comfort me, but I cried. 7 days later, it was time for registration. On the last day of registration, they called me and they said, Themba, do you have money right now to register? And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? They're like, University of Johannesburg, we are calling you from the University of Johannesburg. We need you to come and register for the course that you applied for. I'm like, but you rejected. They're like, just come to the campus. I called my dad. It was early in the morning. I rushed out. Normally I have, where I grew up, I have like a sort of a cottage outside where I used to sleep in. And then I rushed to the main house. My mom was home. I called my mom. Like, hey, University of Johannesburg just called me. They said they're putting me through. And then my dad was not there at the time. My dad, funny enough, my dad was at the bank. He was trying to get money to go to Limpopo. They were busy building and all that stuff. And then called my dad, and my dad had to take the very same money that they were preparing for their journey, and we went to the university. And I was like, wow, this God is amazing. So that kind of faith, that's when it started developing. Going all the way, I have so many stories I can tell you. Going all the way to my career, how I got the job. Like, I'm not a book smart person, but the grace that I'm seeing in my career, even the grace of finding a faithful wife in this day and age, it's so beautiful. So that's the kind of impact that my dad has had in me. Yeah.
So is there any miracle that you witnessed growing up?
Miracle that I've witnessed, it's me getting saved, eh? It's a miracle. It's a miracle to get salvation. It's a miracle. The biggest miracle I've seen, funny enough, I was when I went home during Easter, I was even reminding my dad and the congregation back at home about that miracle. Is when my dad this other time he prayed for this guy who couldn't speak. He was born mute, so he couldn't speak. He prayed for him and he started speaking. You know, in a community, you know that this person can't speak. This person was born mute. And then he prayed for him and then he started speaking. And that, I think that's the miracle that I saw. Of course, I've seen all other miracles. I've seen cripples started walking. You know, back in the 90s when there were crusades, my dad used to host these open air crusades, called different pastors from Limpopo. I remember the late Pastor Chabalala from Limpopo, Katzingitzing. He used to perform some miracles. People used to get up and walk. The blind would see. And I'm talking about genuine miracles. I'm not talking about the type of miracles where you have to do an interview after that, which I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm talking about in a case of where they pray for the person, whereby the community knows that person. It's not a stranger. The community knows that person. And that person, all of a sudden, they're not using a wheelchair anymore, you know. So I've seen a couple, but I'll say the memorable one, it's the one my dad has done by the grace of the Lord. Yeah.
Amen. Thank you for joining us again, Brother Themba. Thank you for the viewers for joining us. I hope you can join us again on Mondays. Same